All right. Bonne nuit or bonsoir tout le monde. Good evening, everyone. I'm in high spirits, feeling really good and thankful for another chance for us to get together. I was just asking in the chat box, like, can people just tell me in the chat box how they've been doing this past week? Did you drink water? Did you meet all your water intake, hydration goals this week? Did you do the journaling? I mean, in last Tuesday's session, I asked you to do a couple of assignments for me. Did you journal about your relationship with food, your relationship with yourself, your relationship with others, your relationship with God? And where's that at? I'm curious if people are actually doing the work with me here. I mean, I had a number of different thoughts and reflections this week about my relationship with food and also my relationship with God. And I have to admit to myself that I think I'm still dealing with grief over the loss of a dear friend that hit me really hard in November. And I think that that's infiltrating the way I relate to food these days. And just really interesting reflections. Even though I'm the one teaching this, I'm still being prompted, provoked, rebuked, corrected along the way. So if you didn't get a chance to journal, there's a weekend coming up. I hope you'll take advantage of it to just do that thought work that I think is so integral to this process as well. This 52-day journey together is really what you make it. I tried to make this as low touch as possible so that you can still have a life while doing this. But I think because of that flexibility, you might be tempted to just, tune in and be an observer instead of be actually plugged in and doing the work. So I say all that to say, I really encourage you to do the reflective pieces that I offer you because I think it's in those reflections that you might find nuggets within yourself that can help propel you on your own personal journey. I also want to remind you, look, I'm your facilitator. I took this picture last February, so it's about a year old. And I remember where I was last February, where I was on my personal journey of renewal. I was not sure, I was feeling so many things, experiencing so many things. And I look at this picture as I opened the slide deck and was getting ready for tonight's call and was like, wow, what a difference a year can make. God has been so good to me, and I'm so grateful for all that I've learned, all that I endured, all that I had to walk through. And especially as I'm introducing us to our second pillar of the Renew Challenge, I really am excited for what it could do for you to do a deep dive into energy, understanding it, and also learning how to leverage it for your good. I've been a Christian for most of my life, I think. And I think that there are parts of me that I had relegated to God, that God was actually expecting me to be in charge of. And I think many of us make that mistake. I don't know if you're Christian or Buddhist or whatever it is you subscribe to. Sometimes we spiritualize aspects of ourselves that really often we need to be in the driver's seat of. And I think the second pillar of our Renew framework is one of those that you kind of, might not see how big of an impact it has on your day-to-day life. But for me, when I started to dig deep on understanding energy, how to manage my energy, how to create more of it, how to be less of a drag and more of an uplifting force everywhere I go, I began to search through scripture to kind of see examples of like, how does God show up or people who are led by God show up? And one of my favorite scriptures about this came from, it's the Bible scripture that I really love says that people who are led by the Spirit are like the wind. Where they come from and where they're going, people don't quite know. Like you can't quite catch the wind, you can't contain the wind. Wind is moving. You feel the effect of it. And I think that's the frame I'd love for you to keep in mind as we launch into the second pillar of the Renew program, which is energy. A big piece of this is for you to become super aware about your energy. What is, you know, different religions and different schools of thought have different opinions about what energy is. You know, science talks about energy. They say energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It's just moved from one form to the other. They say that of matter, and matter is consisting of energy, for example. But in the context of our Renew program, you know, we started the journey with relationship, and I've asked you to think of yourself in these four quadrants: relationship with you, relationship with food, relationship with God, relationship with others. Now, what powers all of that is our energy, our life force. One of my other scriptures that I really leaned into in my own renewal journey was a scripture that talks about Moses, that at the age of 120, his natural force, his eyes did not grow dim, neither was his natural force abated. Like he still had energy and flow and still had the ability to climb mountains and part seas. And that's the kind of energy I want. Because I don't know about you, but when I needed this journey really badly in early 2022, I was a shadow. I was a shadow of myself. I was lethargic and slow. I couldn't keep up with my kids. I had a lot of, I had real bad sleep apnea, snoring. You know, my husband would record me on his phone like, oh my God, I couldn't even sleep last night because you were snoring so badly. I had so many things that were energy related. And oftentimes, our lack of energy is a symptom of our lack of understanding of how to create it, how to manage it, how to harness. So that's what the second pillar of our Renew program is. And this is what we're getting into tonight. So we've already done pillar one. Congratulations. You know, we've done pillar one. And now we're starting pillar two, which looks at energy. And what will come after that is nutrition and exercise. And then we'll crown everything off with work. I want to remind you, if you've not done your medical checkup yet, do it. You know, it's just really good to be armed in a journey like this with information about where your body is at. You know, check your cholesterol, check your blood sugar, check your weight, check everything you can. Mainly because I'm not a healthcare professional. I'm sharing all of this information partly, you know, to inform you, but also to encourage you to seek out what works for you. And I encourage you to do this hand in hand with a healthcare professional who knows your specific history and can walk you through it. I congratulate everyone who's already done that. And I want to talk a little bit about my personal life. For those of you who know me personally, you know that I am a mother of three kids, but there's one of my kids that really changed my life. This is a picture of me and my son, Derek. Derek is 7 years old. He was born and shortly after his birth, diagnosed with a rare genetic syndrome. He wasn't projected to live more than a few days or a few weeks. And he he's a miracle. The fact that he's still alive is a miracle. And the fact that I am as sane as I am is also a miracle. I share this because I think that each of us may be carrying things. Life may have happened to us in a way that we didn't anticipate or expect. I didn't anticipate nor expect that I would be the mother of a special needs child. I did not anticipate nor expect that I would be shuttling across seas to for my family life. You know, Derek is based in the US, and my two other kids and my husband are based in Ghana, and we shuttle back and forth. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that I would be a parent of a child that is wheelchair bound at the moment, nonverbal, unable to communicate with me. I did not expect. And when issues of life happen, we tend to either fight or fly. The fight or flight instinct is one of the most basic human instincts. They call it an animalistic instinct. Am I going to fight this thing or am I going to, but either way, whether you fight or flight, there are things that happen to us that mar our worldview and also inform our choices. And I think if I look at my life post the birth of my son, that is where I started making breathtakingly bad decisions about my health. I think the depression led to weight gain. I think the weight gain, led to the armor of my self-esteem being weakened. I think the volatility of his health and the issues around finances and managing his care, especially remotely, damaged my sense of, I didn't care about me. I cared about him and the other two kids that God gave me. And so I was dealing with mom guilt when I'm with Derek and my other two kids weren't there. I'd be dealing with mom guilt when I was with the two kids and I'm not with Derek. And so I went through a lot of psychological torture and a lot of like, this is trauma. That's the truth. I share this because I want to be vulnerable with you with the hopes that it might prompt you into your own journey of vulnerability to document and record. Where did I fall off of the wagon? Where did I stop caring for self? What happened that made me a little less interested in the quality of my existence and start fixating on the quality of others? And I'm not saying I regret my choices, but I am saying that no matter what it is you are experiencing, what life is throwing at you, I invite you to look at this pillar as the pillar that awakens you to the fact that if you will be effective at serving, your family or your company, your community, your country, it needs to start with your care of self. And I didn't learn this lesson quickly enough. I learned it a little late because by then I had developed hypertension. I was severely hypertensive. I was on medications for that. In fact, I remember one day I was in a car, I was heading to a meeting, but I had a very strong inkling to just go to the hospital. I didn't know that there was anything wrong with me, but I'm spiritual enough to know that I needed to follow the voice of God, which was in my ear telling me, don't go to this meeting, you're going to just go to the hospital. And when I went to the hospital and I checked myself in and they took my BP, the nurse screamed and said, "Did you run here? Did you?" I was like, "No, I literally just got out of my car." She was like, "Your BP is through the roof." They immediately rushed me to the treatment room and put me on some drips and gave me some emergency medicine, etc. I thought I was fine, but I'm walking around as a ticking time bomb because of the amount of psychological pressure I was under. Maybe for you, it's work. You're working in a toxic work environment. People are playing psychological mind games on you. You want to do a good job, but on the other hand, you feel like you're not safe here. You're in the fight or flight mode. Your body's pumped, filled with adrenaline. You're going through things and you just are not yourself. You're subject to panic attacks. You're subject to some sort of anxiety or a heightened sense of like paranoia. Whatever you might be facing or have faced, I would love for you to do some journaling work today to think about, can you put a finger on when you stopped caring for yourself? So, Derek, 7 years ago, this was where I put my finger on when I stopped being as mindful about what I was putting in my body. And I was in a hospital. I was at the NICU. He was hospitalized for probably about 10 months. We didn't know whether he was living or dying. I was stress eating. And then I was, like there was bad food everywhere. I'd stay up late into the night ordering takeout. eating ice cream. Food really was my only comfort, and I was alone for most of it. So socially, I wasn't really well cared for either. I adopted bad habits that trickled down and were hard to shake. You're probably wondering, Yawa, what has this to do with energy? I think if we will be 100% honest with ourselves and good at getting to the roots of why we're dealing with some of the things we're dealing with, it would be 100% so much more helpful than just taking in information without trying to dig deep. Are you with me? Just let me know in the chat box if you're with me. It feels like it's kind of quiet. I've muted everyone, so the quality of our recording would be good. Okay, I see a few people doing their reporting. Some people haven't journaled, but they're drinking their water. They're eating smaller portions of food. All right, I like what I'm reading. Thank you for that update. Evelyn, thank you for the update. I hope you dig deep into journaling this weekend. All right. Thank you also for doing your health checkup. Awesome. And I hope for those of you who haven't, you'll be encouraged by Evelyn and do your health checkup this weekend if you're able. But before we start nutrition and exercise, I think it's so important that each of us knows what's going on in our body. All right. So the second pillar of our Renew program is energy. And energy is so important because without energy, you can't really do much. And I think that for me, this Renew program is for women who are called to do amazing things. You may not have even discovered what those things are, but you have a deep sense within you that you are called for more. You're called to do bigger things than what you've scratched the surface of. But some of us will never live up to the fullness of that simply because we are de-energized. We are, unwell and lethargic and slow. And when we're de-energized and lethargic and slow, the quality of our decisions get affected. And that's what I saw happening to me. By 2022, I was in a job that I had been doing for about 4 years. I was executive director of an international NGO. I was traveling all the time. And I just saw that the worse my health got, the worse the quality of my decisions got. When I was physically unwell, like I could hear myself huffing and puffing in meetings, and I'm not even running. I'm just like, I can't breathe well because I'm just carrying around so much extra weight that I, sound like a noisy air conditioner instead of a human being. I realized that I was becoming irritable and cynical. I realized that I just could not keep up with people. With all of the things that was happening, I was experiencing brain fog. I was just going through what I thought was like, oh, I'm just getting older, but no, it was these bad decisions. So when we're talking about energy, it's really like what's the vital force within us that influences our thoughts, our emotions, and our choices, our behaviors, our actions. And it's important because energy is there's so many contributing factors to our energy. And I think if I were to ask you what energizes you, I don't know. I don't know what energizes you, but I'm so determined to be so mindful now of people and of environments and of things that energize and de-energize me. So for example, the whole month of December, I spent decluttering. I wanted this office. I'm speaking to you from my home office, and I am just in a minimalist mode right now. I don't want clutter around me. I find that when there's clutter around, I can't think straight. I read one of my mentors gave me this book a few years ago. Let me see if it's on this shelf. I don't, oh yeah, it's right here. One of my mentors gave me this book. It's called The Life Transforming Magic of Tidying Up, right? And she gave me this book, and I was like, is she telling me I'm messy? What is she trying to say? The cynic in me was like, she's trying to send me a message. But I spent like a weekend at her house, and we took a retreat together, and it was wonderful. She's one of my longstanding mentors that I've known since college. And she said, Yawa, there's just something that I want to say to you. Don't take it personally, but you carry around a lot of stuff. Like, I came to her house with more luggage than I needed. I had so much stuff on me and so much stuff. And she's like, it is said, like, she practices Buddhism. I don't, but she said, as the without, so the within. Like, your environment is a reflection of your inside. If as the without, so the within. Like, read this book. This is not me um insulting you. This is me asking you to consider what this book is teaching. And so throughout the month of December, I was decluttering because I realized that I was now, as the year was ending, I know I was dealing with the grief from the loss of a dear friend, but I realized that I just couldn't focus. I wasn't like, what's going on? And then I remembered, like, actually, I've accumulated a lot of things. I cleared out my bedroom, cleared out my closets, cleared out my office, made space, just gave everything a space. And almost magically, my mood lifted. I'm realizing that this stuff matters in relationship to our energy. And so it's the force that flows within us, but it's also the environment that we create. In his book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, Dr. Stephen Covey talks about a principle that I really like. He says that each of us needs to carry our own weather. It's about the energy we bring. Have you ever been around someone? Tell me the truth. Admit to me in the chat box, please. Have you ever been around someone who, I don't know, they're a breath of fresh air? Even if they didn't say anything, their presence just feels positive and encouraging and uplifting. Has that happened to you before? Have you also been around someone who, the moment they show up, it's like someone turned down the temperature. It's cold. It's like, you can't quite put a finger on it, but they're carrying what people say bad energy. All right, thank you, Evelyn, for letting me know that. Yes. And the thing is, our energy says a lot. We can either attract or repel by the kind of energy we put off. So it's what fuels us, but people pick up on it. That's the point I'm trying to make. That all of us should be so bent on knowing how to manage our energy, partly because it informs people's opinions about us. And God loves us all. But the truth is, everything God gives us, He gives us through the vehicle of some sort of relationship. So without people thinking favorably of us, it's not often that we'll enjoy favor. Without people thinking kindly about us, we won't often experience kindness. So the energy is important to me because I see that it's not even just the internal, flow of the juices, the vital force, but it's also what that produces on the outside. And it's been fascinating to me, and I hope it fascinates you as well. So I also want you to realize that energy links to purpose. It's about flow. It's about how well you enter into the flow of what God is assigning you to do with your day, with your life. I like to illustrate it this way, that oftentimes each of us, if we don't understand our assignment, might be misaligned energetically. The example that I love to give is like when I coach people, I'm like, you know, maybe you're discontent right now because you're called to be a Deborah, but you're out here trying to be a Mary, right? And I say that to mean some women are actually called to leadership in a public sphere. They're called to more than just domestics. And so, Mary is going about, Martha, or who's the busybody that Jesus was blaming? I think it was Martha, rather. Excuse my typo on this slide. So are you called to be a Deborah, or are you called to be a Martha? And sometimes we are out of flow because we're trying to fit ourselves into a box that we weren't meant to be in. And I see this happens to many of us. especially in many parts of the developing world where we're so used to other people making our decisions for us. Maybe you went to a certain school because that's what, your parents told you to go. They chose the course that you were going to do. You got this job because this is the only one that called you. A lot of us aren't used to taking the driver's seat of our lives, and it saps our ability to come into whatever we're doing with an actual flow of positive energy because we're not even 100% sure we're supposed to be there. Some of us are demoralized because we're not even sure that what we're doing with most of our day actually links to purpose. So I think in my journey, I realized that if I'm clear-minded about purpose, I set myself up to use my energy differently and to enter into what I call a flow. For me, it comes from the book of Hebrews, where the Bible says that there remains a rest for the people of God. Like, I know hustle culture very well because I'm a multicultural African. Formative years of my life were spent in the US. And I think there's something about striving and hustling and trying that I'm disabusing myself of the older that I get. And the older that I get, I'm now beginning to lean on God to say, Lord, am I investing my time and energy in the right place? And I find that if you're purposeful and thoughtful with your days, it's easier to manage the energy that's needed to meet those tasks. Just as your days, so shall your strength be. Again, another Bible passage. A lot of this comes to me as I study the scriptures and realize that actually energy links to purpose. That some of us were told when we were young, we talk too much, we're this, we're too much. And I don't know, but can anyone tell me in the chat box, have you ever been told you are too much? Too much, anyone? You're too extra? People don't understand you? It's about finding the spaces and places where you can be in flow. And oftentimes we're demoralized or de-energized towards things and people and individuals because we haven't found that internal flow that can manifest itself on the outside. Are you getting this? Are you following? Just let me know in the chat box. Don't leave me hanging, people. Um, so as I was saying before about Dr. Stephen Covey, your energy introduces you before people get to know you, right? And so people pick up on it. It's not even just your internal vitality. And it's hard to have really good energy when you're really unwell. Thank you for letting me know you're following, Ellen. Thank you. It's hard to have good energy when you're not well. And that's what began to happen to me in early 2022 when, my BP issues were really worrisome. And I was, my cholesterol was super high. I also was diagnosed as a diabetic. So now I'm taking medications for these three chronic illnesses. And each of those medications has side effects, like the metformin that I was taking for the diabetes made me even hungrier. So I started gaining even more weight after I got put on the medicines. And then I was on the hypertensive medicines, which was, really bugging me because I was reading studies about the prolonged use of those type of medicines and the fact that it early stage dementia, Alzheimer's, those type of situations. And then the medicine that they gave me for my high cholesterol was giving me really bad things like night sweats and muscle cramps. So I started to feel very irritable. And, I'm a Christian woman, but I wasn't always acting very Christian because I hated how I looked. I was losing my confidence in the body. And then people are clapping for me still professionally, but I know internally that it ain't right. So our energy introduces us. And before I knew it, like a job that I was doing really well, I just started to not do as well as I used to. People that I had favor with, I started to not have favor with anymore. environments that I seem to, have flowed in before, I stopped being able to flow in. And all of this is because the energy you carry is linked to so many dimensions of you, and it introduces you before you introduce yourself. So I want to make the point that energy really is the driving force that fuels your ambition and your desires, and it helps you to pursue the goals that God's put on your heart to pursue. But it's also connected to your well-being, like our physical health, our spiritual and emotional. A lot of people say that when I eat really heavy in the evening, I have strange dreams. Like you see like the effect of the physical action in your dream life, you know. Sometimes you have a real inkling to pray and all of that, but you feel so heavy you can't even do that. I don't know if it's happened to you before. So a lot of times there are many, many things that we don't really understand are connected to energy. So I really want you to understand that energy is dynamic. It can and does fluctuate. And I talked about the environment. So like keeping a clear environment. If you don't have this book, I'd encourage you read it. She became very popular. She even got a Netflix series. The woman who wrote this book is Marie Kondo. I think she's from Japan. She's Asian. She's an organizing specialist, but her book is called The Life Transforming Magic of Tidying Up. And she talks about the fact that just by tidying up your environment, she's helped clients lose weight, get married. Like when you clear the clutter in your environment, wow. When I was working with my wellness coach, I realized that she was telling me, like, what kind of lights do you have in your house? I was like, what kind of question is she asking me? She was asking me questions like, show me where you sleep. Show me, oh, yeah, well, if I were you, I would change this. If I were you, I would change that. When I made those changes, I realized that, wow, my mood is lifted. I wake up a little more energized. In fact, this home office, when I set it up, I used to have my back to the window. And, we have a really great view in this room that I'm in, a really good view of the Abri Hill. So I live close enough to Abri that to us it looks like a small mountain. And when I open this window in the morning, I can look out there. But can you imagine when I set up this office, I have the desk facing this way and my back was to the view. And this one little tweak just makes it so much more delightful to work in this space. So sometimes it's our environment. You see relationships showing up here again. Relationships can energize and de-energize you, and it's also your mindset, right? Thank you, Boanelia. You're saying that you can relate to decluttering and mood improving. Yeah. So how much light are you getting? How much fresh air are you getting? So I love getting up before the family and doing a little bit of exercise and then cooling off on the balcony while I'm looking out at the mountain. And then I put on some prayer music and then I'm just worshiping. And it's like so uplifting to me. If I can't do it because the weather's bad, I go downstairs and I put, on the TV, like worship music or something encouraging or motivational. And I just sit in quietness with myself and my God before all of my people wake up. And it's like, wow, this is good. So I share these as examples because I am a married woman with young kids. My oldest is 11, my youngest is 4. And as I told you, I've got a middle child who has needs who I don't get to live with. And so I'm managing a lot of different moving pieces all the time. So I can't be effective if I don't manage my energy. So, for example, I wouldn't be able to do this program for you all if I couldn't manage my energy. In a previous life, a previous version of me would be falling apart right now. But I've become so much more aware of what I need to be successful, so much more thoughtful about what time I schedule things. So you notice that I scheduled these calls late evening when my youngest is down and gone to bed, right? He goes to bed before 7. And so I love to do this type of creative work and vulnerable work at night. And I find that in the quiet, when my kids are sorted, my family's sorted, nothing, no personal life disruption should step in the way. then I have a better flow than I if I tried to squeeze this during some 9 to 5 time, right? So I realize that a lot of us might be new to this kind of thinking, but I want to testify that it's been phenomenal for my own growth and transformation. So these are the dimensions of energy I want you to consider. For me, at the highest of all of this is spiritual energy. And that's why I keep reiterating that for me, these lasting changes that I've made that have improved my physical, emotional, and mental well-being started with a spiritual awakening. For those who didn't hear my story in the deep dive, I talked about the fact that it was this biblical study or the study of the biblical book of Nehemiah that really unlocked something for me. That the Bible says that we are the temple. And if, he was able to rebuild in 52 days, I felt like God was nudging my heart to believe that if I just focused on a spiritual path for 52 days, that I would get insights and into what could heal me mentally and physically and emotionally. So I really, again, want you to ride with me here in these next 10 days, because I really think that if you think about it, you might be able to put a finger on the story of where you stopped caring for you, that started to make choices. Then you started to make choices that were consistently draining and depleting your energy. For some of us, it might have been the choice of a relationship, a romantic relationship that, made you lose sight of you in a way that just really started to affect you mentally, emotionally, and physically. Maybe for others, it's I was fine until I agreed to take on this role. I knew I could do the job, but that decision I decided I stopped caring for me. And it's a vulnerable place to be, but it's a powerful place to pinpoint. So that if you go deep and understand and unpack what was going on then, you can kind of safeguard yourself from recreating that situation. I am so determined to never get burnt out again, because I knew that as a leader of an organization with multi-million dollar budgets, I was okay, but I was not making great decisions when I was not well, which is partly why I decided to resign. I was like, I am not physically well, but I also think because of that, I'm not seeing things as clearly for this organization as I used to. And it takes a lot to admit those things to yourself and to bow out and to say, no, I'm going to focus on recovery. And I don't know where each of you is at and whether for some of you this makes more sense than others. But again, roll with me, people. If you're with me, may I see an emoji or something in the chat box? Let me know you're with me. Yeah. All right. Ooh, Clara says, I've been told to let things slide. Thank you for the emojis I'm seeing. When I'm asking for errors with other people, people consider as trivial to be corrected at work. And then for me, I can see the long-term effect of not correcting these, but they don't. Then I appear extra, quote unquote. It can get frustrating, but I stand my ground. Ugh, I get you, Clara. When you have high standards, people, can misinterpret that. And oftentimes we can internalize that. So, Clara, I don't know if you've seen this pattern in your life, but when that used to happen to me, I could internalize people's criticism to an extent that it would derail me. So I saw real interesting patterns in my leadership that if my staff weren't happy with me, I couldn't stand people not being happy with me. And that's people pleasing. And the root of that is fear, like fear of man. The Bible talks about something called the fear of man. It's demonic, basically. But a lot of us are conditioned to be fearful of people's opinion. When someone says, "Oh, you're not nice," it's like you've killed me. I'm not nice. I'm a good Christian girl. I'm supposed to be nice. But the Bible never uses the word nice. It uses the word kindness, which is a function of the Spirit of God, not fear of retribution or fear of not being liked. So I tell you, the energy that we bring into our workplaces can be messed up, even by how we internalize people's feedback to us. So thank you for sharing that, Clara. I tell you. So this is just another way of saying what I said in the beginning. Like what influences our physical energy? It's what kind of eating we're doing, how much sleeping we're doing, how much hydration we're doing, which is why throughout our challenge, this is my second one today, so I'm on it for my water intake for today. I hope you're doing well yourself. Emotional, what empowers how you feel about yourself and how you feel about others? A lot of us on the emotional plane, it's really about how do we embrace, acknowledge the emotions that we're having. You notice I keep talking about grief because I am very self-aware that something very significant happened to me, the loss of a friend. And I'm practicing kindness with myself. I am trying not to be judgmental, but I'm also acknowledging that there's a lot of processing that I'm doing in real time, right? When you understand how your emotions can be playing with and messing with you, it's you accept that you're multifaceted and you feel your feelings, but you create an environment where you can foster more of the positive emotions, right? I used to fall apart, especially if someone spoke very unkindly to me. I saw this even in my activism. If someone didn't agree with my opinions on women or youth, I could fall apart. My emotions weren't in check. They were controlling me instead of me being on top of them. So a lot of us may need a bit of practice in how to marry all of these planes, like the physical. Are you listening to your body and what it needs? I learned from one of my coaches. She prompted me on this practice that I want to share with you. She says, she asked me to do a time audit. So she asked me to open my calendar and to see all of the things I've committed to. And she said, yeah, well, I don't see you on your calendar. And I said, what do you mean you don't see me on my calendar? All of this is me. This is all of the stuff I've committed to do over the next month or so. And she said, you don't understand. These are the things you're doing for or with others, but I don't see anything on the calendar of what you're doing for yourself. And so she showed me something that she does, which is every day at midday, she has a notification that comes on her calendar that says, how are you feeling and what do you need? And I put that on my calendar as well, because I think it's just an important reminder for each of us throughout the day to check in with ourselves. How are you feeling and what do you need? Sometimes when that pops up on my calendar, I get up and I stretch, I do a few squats, I drink some water, and I sit back down and go to work. But sometimes when I sit and think about it, it's like I've really missed my friend. Like this weekend, I was really thinking like I really miss my friend Emma. I haven't seen her in a long time. I, so we had a long catch up on Sunday night. We were at the beach, late into the night, we're two friends chatting up a storm way into the wee hours of the morning because I felt like I needed some girlfriend time. But a lot of us don't do the audit for ourselves. We don't do the audit enough or often, or we don't quite pay attention to listen to what our body needs in order to care for it, right? Then we need to be focused on the mental. What are we doing to be very mindful? And I know like these days when you say mindful, everyone feels like you have to add demure, but I'm not talking about that kind of mindful. I'm talking about how are we taking captive every thought that we have and making sure if this thought does not serve who I'm trying to be and what I'm trying to accomplish, I refuse to think it. And for me, the Bible verse that came alive for me on this one is Whatever is pure, whatever is honorable, whatever is worthy of repute, think about those things. Which means whatever is evil, whatever makes you feel all sorts of drama and trauma, don't think about that. And it's so simple to say, a little harder to implement. Because if you let your mind go wild, it will take you places. And in fact, if you're mindlessly scrolling, you know, because maybe you're dealing with like some sort of infidelity issue in your marriage, and then you keep watching movies about women being cheated on. Like, how does that help you? Maybe you're dealing with some sort of issue at work, and like how are the things that you are watching and spending time on helping you deal with those things in a positive way? So those are the things that really helped me. I'm very deliberate now about what kind of things I watch. My husband will tell you, hey, before y'all will sit and watch a movie with me, I have to explain who's in it, what's the storyline. She'll go online and read about it and see if this is the kind of thing she wants to subject her emotions to. Because I believe you've got to take captive every thought. You've got to submit it to the knowledge of Christ, which is what I believe as a Christian. But I think part of this is having the ability to bring alignment between all of these different realms of your performance. And for many of us, we are leaders over others. And the quality of our leadership really boils down to the quality of our decisions. And we can't often make great decisions if we're physically, emotionally, mentally, and dare I say, even spiritually misaligned. So, on the spirit realm is your values. You know, what do you stand for? And this is not what religion do you practice versus everyone else, but what value system do you have in place for self? Like I have a few things that feel so important to me. And one of them is people are precious. Treat them as such. That no matter who a person is, I want to say my pleases and my thank yous. I want people to feel loved. I want people to feel energized by my presence, because everything God wants to give me, he'll give me through people. And he died for them. So I better love them. And in fact, the scriptures say, owe no one anything but love. So that's my value system. I want to be respectful of people. I want to respect people's time. I want people to feel loved by me. I want people to feel supported by me. And I want to be in people's corner. So part of that, when I was unwell, I noticed that that value system was being eroded. So do you see how the physicality is at the bottom of all of this? Like, it is hard to think good and happy thoughts when you're eating crappy food. When we talk about nutrition, I'm going to go deeper into some of what I learned that really changed my thinking about certain types of food and putting them in your body. For example, the amount of hormones and antibiotics that go into our meat products. So be careful about where you source the meats, because sometimes the hyperactivity, the ADHD, the depression, the suicidal ideation, some of it is a function of what we're putting in our body. Like meat products that have been really pumped up with harmful chemicals that flows into our blood system when we eat them. So now I'm very thoughtful about where I order my eggs and meat products and fruits and vegetables. There's an organic farm that I now order my fresh produce from, because I noticed that actually, if I really want good vibes, I really have to think about what I'm putting in the body. Like, am I giving my body harmful, toxic things, or am I really being thoughtful about everything and where I'm sourcing it? So, anyway, let me not jump the gun on nutrition, but the point of these slides is to show you the linkages between the different planes of energy and how it affects your ability to perform at a peak level. Are you with me? Is this good? Is this helpful? Let me know in the chat box. Let me know I'm not talking to myself. All right. Thank you. Thank you for the thumbs up and the comments coming in. So what do we do with this information? Like, yeah, I hear you. Okay, energy matters. What do I do with this information? And part of it is I want you to understand that from henceforth, now on and forever, I want you to make real bold moves about what you spend your energy on, who you spend your energy with, like, how do you get in the environment of people who are energized at the level that keeps you motivated to pursue the things that God's called you to do? So, for example, you know, if you really want to transform your life, you need people that are ahead of you, not behind you. That sounds so duh, but you'd be surprised how many of us claim we want to be here, but we're hanging out with people who are here. We want to be eagles, but all of our friends are chickens. And you wonder why you're not smashing your goals. If you want to be thin and all of your friends are fat, the people you spend the most time with all have bad eating habits, all have bad, make bad choices when it comes to exercise and nutrition, etc., then you're not likely going to be in peak form. And the truth is, being mindful enables us to facilitate the changes, to motivate us to break the old patterns that we have. And energy is essential if you're going to be resilient. We're in a world that analysts call volatile and unpredictable, and it's fast paced, it's changing. And if you want to win in a season of this much change, we're going to need to be resilient. And it's going to be hard to do that if you're physically unwell. And then, as the within, so the without. Oftentimes, when I look at the roots of some of my issues with my husband, they had to do with me. I'm irritable because things aren't going the way I thought they would go. And instead of finding words to express that, he was the target of all of my displeasure with life. But now that I have better tools, I'm able to realize that actually this is a him problem, not a me problem. I used to get so upset if he spoke unkindly to me, it could mess up and derail my whole week. But I had to be able to separate what is my responsibility and what is his. So back to the 7 habits of highly effective people, Dr. Stephen Covey talks about a concept called the circle of influence and the circle of concern. There are certain things that you're concerned about, but you can't influence. I'm concerned by how this person spoke to me, but this is a grown adult. Do I want to influence them? Do I want to spend my energy telling this grown adult that it's 2025 and women shouldn't be treated this way? I used to pick so many unnecessary fights. No wonder my BP was through the roof because I needed everyone to believe what I believe. I don't know if I have some witnesses in this group. I needed everybody to have my opinion noted. Have you ever just needed to have the last word in an argument? Like your resilience, your ability to be strategic, your ability to move high up ladders is so compromised if you do not learn how to manage your energy. And in fact, people get good at pushing your buttons when they see that you're a hothead. They know how to provoke you to anger or to do or say things that make you dig a hole for yourself. So there's just so much power in learning how to recognize your energy, manage your energy, increase your energy, and project the right energy. That's my goal for this module for you. That in this pillar, you'll become awake and alive and alert to some of the patterns of behavior that might not be serving you well as it pertains to the way you relate to others and create an environment for yourself and interrelate as well. There's something I like to call energy vampires. It's people, situations, and things that are overly pessimistic. And it could be you, like your internal self-talk, or people who you spend time with that orient you towards negativity. They're cynical, always making snide remarks about people and things. As for these people, as for men, as for Ghana, I don't want to be around complainers anymore. It saps your ability to think in the realm of possibility. And I want everyone on this challenge to reach and smash all the goals that they have for themselves. And it's hard to do that if you do not identify and extricate yourself from energy vampires. In fact, I have a friend that I don't pick her calls anymore because, hey, yeah, what did you see on the news? Hey, did you see and oh, and it's just like Every other word is a of pessimism. Every other word is and then she adds, but let's pray. No, like I want to be mindful about everything that I give too much headspace. And if you are giving so much headspace to everything that is wrong or could be wrong, might I suggest to you that that might be why you live in an anxious state or a pessimistic state that leads to depression? You're prone to bouts of irritability because you might be fueling up with the wrong people or the wrong things. Some of us love watching sad movies, and you wonder why you're in a perpetual state of sadness. This world is hard. Oh, hmm. People are bad. Oh, I don't know if you have people like that in your family or in your circles. They always have suspicion and they always don't trust anything. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be smart, you shouldn't be reasonable, you shouldn't have good judgment. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying there's a tendency to swing so far to a certain side of a pendulum in pessimism that it de-energizes you. And sometimes that's what happens. I remember I got so excited. I went to an auntie friend of mine and I said, I have this business idea. And I told her the business idea and I was so excited. I went there with energy. And she's like, yeah, well, this is gonna, these things, it can't even work. If you wanted to do this, you have to get approval from here and here. She spent like a whole hour pouring cold water on my idea. I went there with a chest up. I left there with shoulders down. Like I thought to myself, you know something? I should never have shared my idea with someone like this. I know how she is. She's just she can't help it. This is who she is. Which is why I invest heavily in coaching. I have friends, but I know who I talk to about ideas. I don't talk to all of my friends about all of my ideas because I realize that not everyone can receive it. Not everyone has the exposure level or the belief level that I need to keep pushing in the direction that I feel God is calling me to go. So, therefore, it is an act of wisdom to exercise discretion with people who are overly pessimistic. Other energy vampires show up as overexertion, draining all of your physical energy up from 4. You don't sleep until past midnight. And I used to be this busy bee at home, busy bee at work, busy bee everywhere. And being overwhelmed, my friend, is never God's best for us. And in many of our cultures, it's a badge of a good woman to be tired, tired, so tired, exhausted. Did you grow up with that story in your life? Can you let me know in the chat or by emoji? Did you grow up hearing about the superwoman? This is a good woman. This woman, she's up before her family. She does this, she does that. And people's like of you or your perception of likability might be so tied to being overly performative. So you're constantly not eating well, not hydrating well, not exercising well, not having downtime. I was someone who never took a Sabbath, you know? And people would be all sorts of like they said you'll sleep when you die, right? Elom, yes. They said if you're not tired, you're not there yet. You're not a woman. It's a thankless job. And we've taken the trope of women who need to be up and about. And look, I have learned how to advocate for myself. Can you type that in the chat box? Advocate for yourself. What do you need in order to be successful? What do you need? In fact, I now have a me fund. Like that's what I'm paying for my coaching. Like it's not selfish to pay for my executive coaching. It's not selfish for me to pay for the day away. It's not selfish for me to ask, or to budget for certain conveniences so that I do not spend all of my energy on things that are, maybe not really worth my time at this stage of life. I know there are people who will still make you feel bad for hiring a driver, hiring, a house help, or not being the one who cooks all of the meals in your home. But these are the energy vampires. And sometimes they come in the form of traditions. I'm reminded of this Bible scripture that says that Christ could do no great work in certain places because they couldn't mix with faith. Like the same word was preached to us as was preached to them. They couldn't mix it with faith. And another scripture says he couldn't do great works there because of their traditions. Like some of us have a traditional way of thinking about what a life of a woman should look like that is so at odds with what we actually need to be successful. So instead of spending the time, promoting your business or curating your visibility, you're out there pounding fufu and making, palm nut soup. And, that thing takes a day to make, right? Because hours that you could have spent on the assignment God gave you, you're spending doing the performing that your traditions and your culture is requiring. And I know I'm throwing some shots here, and I love you if you enjoy that. But I am saying that I've seen how in my life and in the lives of other women that I coach, women who are called to public leadership, to lead things outside of the home, it's this stuff that makes them tired and worn out and a fraction. They get a fraction of the traction that they should have in their leadership. So you always need to ask, what do I need to be successful at doing this? I can be in charge of something. It doesn't mean that I have to do it, right? And I have a strategy that I introduced called the 3Ds. What can I delete? What can I defer? And what can I delegate? Can you write that in the chat box? Delete, defer, delegate. Each of us will have to do that if we're gonna succeed over these energy vampires. Because if you overextend yourself, you overexert yourself, saying yes to more things than you have time for, oh my, you're setting yourself up to be de-energized and then become a shadow of yourself. You look tired, you become irritable, the quality of your decisions diminishes. And the older you get, the more you need to be mindful of these. And then, of course, this is worsened by poor nutrition, right? Bad food leads to bad moods, right? Bad food leads to bad moods. You can eat lots of sugar and you get a sugar high, then you get a sugar crash, then you need more sugar. Then before you know it, you're in this cycle, right? I realize that so many of us, and this is not me pointing fingers at anybody because I've been here too, and sometimes I still go there. Like you go through something, you're like, I deserve a cheat day. I deserve a cheat meal. And that cheat meal turns into a cheat week, turns into a cheat month, a cheat month. And then before you know it, you're spiraling again, right? So beware, beware. Okay. So how do you manage your energy? Let's get interactive now. I'd love to hear from you. How do you currently manage your energy? What are the things that you're doing to keep yourself, to boost your energy? And can you think of a time when your energy impacted your transformation or your ability to perform? Right? All right. Clara's saying, I felt so guilty the times I've had to order food for the family. The nature of my work now tires me out so much that I cook less and less. And each time that happens, I end up feeling like I'm not taking care of the home as I should. Right? Clara, I've been there. In fact, anyone who's a mom will have to juggle different priorities in these modern days if you're a working mom. And I think it might be time for you if you're noticing that less and less time you're having. Why don't you just incorporate this into how you roll? So, for example, um, I usually order soups and stews and then prepare in advance. So I pre-slice plantain, for example, pre-slice yams, sweet potatoes, and things like that in the freezer so that my food prep time is minimal. I portion the stews and soups in the freezer, and I enlist my family to help. We used to have a live-in nanny for a few years. And we let her go last year in May, so I've had to restructure my home life. But I tell you, like, you have to be okay with looking at the schedule ahead of you and preempting and getting okay with letting, I think it's powerful when your children see you do this juggle, that you won't always get mommy in the kitchen cooking the stuff you eat. It may mean that you'll have to be deliberate about who you're ordering from or guiding them in the preparation of what you need and how you need it prepared. But the three D's that helps anybody is the delete, the defer, and the delegate. And this is the third D, Clara, delegation. Sometimes you have to make the judgment call about what is the higher value task that I should focus my time on so that I'm not depleted at the end. So this week, my husband sends me this TikTok about this recipe that he saw that he would really like. And I was like, okay, no problem. I've got this, and this, you know, on your way home, you buy these ingredients and I'll be happy to make it for you over the weekend. This is what I have on my plate this week. So I'm not saying I won't make it for you, but I am saying I have some competing priorities. So the earliest I can make it is this weekend, and I need you to go and buy these ingredients if you want to make it happen. The old me would have felt like that. It was so wrong. It's disrespectful to my husband. Oh no, because I grew up in the school of thought that a Christian woman always you fall over yourself. But I'm learning to advocate for myself. And it's I we have a stronger relationship now because of it. Because I used to be low key angry at him for things that I never talked about. Do I have some witnesses in the house? Low key, passive aggressive, because I was like, oh, you've disrupted my day again, or this thing that I thought I would do. And I've learned how to assert and say, honey, oh, yeah, sure, I'm happy to do this for you, but I've already committed to do this, this, and this. So, if you can get the ingredients, I'll be sure to make it. And then I'm giving him fans. Wow, this is going to be amazing. Wow, where did you find this recipe? Oh, wow, okay. Then I'm practicing advocating for myself, but I'm also marrying that with, the care. The care will look very different woman to woman. Maybe there is a woman who puts on the full. I have a mentor of mine. We spend a lot of time together. And she says, look, my husband grew up in an environment where his mother cooked, like they didn't just have one dish. Can you imagine? She said there was always three dishes at each meal. So there's a rice, there's jollof, there's wache, maybe this time there's banku. There's like they never just cooked one meal. And she grew up in a house where you cooked one thing. And then he grew up in a house where there was always dessert, a sweet after a meal. And the mom cooked three meals a day. Her constant job was home care, but this woman is an engineer. And so she was having problems in her marriage because her husband expected her to be like his mother. But she had to learn how to advocate for herself. And these are some of the tools that we talked about: delete, defer, delegate, advocate for yourself. And some of the advocacy that you'll do will have to be with your kids. I learned this from other mentors who helped me when I was dealing with mom guilt. Like, look, I asked my child permission. Like, I have a trip coming up. I hope it's okay that mommy goes. This is what mommy is going to be doing. These are the people mommy will be spending time with. So please put your hand on my shoulder. I'll be back, okay? But I'm carrying you here on my shoulder, okay? Like are gonna have to learn how to manage so that I stop spending so much energy thinking about what a bad mom I am. I used to think so much, oh, how could I have left Derek in the US by himself? And then I'm here with these other two kids. Then when I'm with Derek, I'm thinking, why am I not with Anina and Azil? And like you've got to stop spending your energy that way. That's why we talked about the mental load. Too many of us are carrying a high mental load, and it's affecting us. It's preventing us rather from being effective. All right. Yeah, Clara, you know it. The passive aggressive anger that we hold towards our spouses because we're not advocating for ourselves and we're angry when they're fast asleep, they're happy, they're living their lives, and we're going about like, oh my God, because we've imbibed a picture from culture, a picture from movies, a picture from peers, and we're holding a fear that if we don't do this stuff, that they will leave us. But I think part of the challenge for us is learning how to advocate for ourselves and do so assertively with love and cordiality instead of with anger and bitterness. So it's a journey, I tell you. It's a journey. All right. So, public service announcement. Not everything requires your energy, your reaction, or your response. Protecting your energy is an act of protecting yourself. Being able to realize that actually I've got only 24 hours a day. How am I going to use it? I was sharing, I have a mentoring and coaching community called Elevate, and we meet twice a month. So in yesterday's meeting, I was giving them a few tips and tricks that have really helped me boost productivity. And I talked about the fact that I use my calendar now, even with my husband. This is one of the things I had to advocate for myself with, that there are things I thought you were picking up the kids today. No, I thought you were doing this because we just hadn't aligned on schedules. So now we have a shared calendar. I'm like, if you got something, put it on the calendar. If I have something, I'll put it on the calendar so that now, I have very few times when I don't know what's happening and I'm disrupted. Maybe I've put a coaching call or some client work at a time where he just automatically says, oh, I need you to do this today. I was like, yes, I respect you as my husband, but I'm also a business owner and I've made a commitment on this day because I did not know you needed me to do this. I would therefore appreciate it. If you need me to do something, you tell me in advance and don't take it personal. We've had to journey on this. We've been married now for about 18 years, but it's been a journey of having to advocate for self. So it is possible, but you've got to know that not everything needs your energy or your reaction. There are sometimes it's smart to lose the battle so you can win the war. Let the church say amen. And there are some times you have to do the judgment call. Do I push through this or do I advocate for myself and say, no, 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 this can't go? And a lot of things that are medicine to us help our energy, like laughter. I realized throughout the month of December, I just needed to laugh. Like I spent November crying, mourning the loss of my friend. And so throughout Christmas, I was watching a lot of comedies because laughter is such good medicine. So how do you pick up your energy? How do you lift up your mood? It's your environment, it's who you're surrounding yourself with, it's what you're watching, it's what stimulation you're getting. All of these things are medicine that help you fuel. I realize that the more I do my exercising and make it just a habit, the more energetic I feel. I mean, I do some strenuous exercises that of course make me feel sore, but on the whole, I feel way more energized and my mood is boosted. They say that when you exercise, your body releases endorphins. Those are the feel-good hormones, right? So physical activity, although in the moment it can feel tough, is also part of the strategy for energy management. So I hope these tips here help. Sunlight on the skin in the morning is fantastic. Getting early morning sun on your skin is something I highly recommend. I mean, I come into this office, this is where I work out. So I kind of cleared out my office to make space for me moving in this space as well. But it's, the effect of sunlight, the effect of movement, all of these things are medicinal and can really boost your energy as well. All right, so I'm going to end the slides by giving you some homework. The homework is each of us needs to understand how we're feeling and what do we need. So what my executive coach gave me, I'm giving to you. Can you set a daily alarm on your calendar? For me, it goes off at noon every day. You can choose whatever time it goes off, but I want each of us to commit to doing this because I think it's just such a good mindfulness activity to just every day be able to look at your watch or look at your phone or wherever this alarm goes off for you and be reminded to think about yourself. How are you feeling and what do you need? Am I feeling thirsty? Am I feeling, have I been sitting too long? Do I need a walk? Do I need a talk? Do I need a nap? Sometimes that alarm goes off and I'm like, I have been snapping at these kids and all of that. Like, I think I'm just not well rested. I need a nap. And I tell my husband, please, you and your children, can you figure something out? I really need a nap. And he notices the change in me that actually, when I'm well rested, I am easier to live with. He actually enjoys my company more. My kids have a better mom when I'm well rested. So similarly, you might realize that as you do this, the answers will vary and you will learn how to listen thoughtfully to what's actually needed for you to be more energized. Then I'm going to ask each of you to do an energy audit. And this is something that, I learned from my coach as well. Set one day this coming week where you eat nothing, please. I want you to do this. Eating nothing is really important to this exercise. Eat nothing, only hydrate. And if, hydrate with just water if possible. If you need a juice, fine. But please don't eat a meal in the day that you do the energy audit. Engage in your usual activities for this day. So this is not a I'm in bed all day type of day. So do your usual activities, but just skip eating that day and then record and observe what time during that day did you feel really naturally energized? Like, was it in the morning? Was it in the afternoon? Was it in the evening? And in our next coaching session, I'd love for you to report back. You can also report back to your accountability partner before our next coaching session. But the energy audit really helped me and really changed the way I plan my day. So I have kind of three windows of work now. I have early morning work, I have late afternoon work, and late night work because I really notice my natural energy patterns, right? That I have these bursts of random thoughts. So I do really creative work in the morning. I do like drudgery work late afternoons. This is like work that just needs to go. Like, and then late at night, I do more creative work and planning work, right? So creative work like this type of, service. And I realize that I am in flow when I do it this way. I'm energized. I'm able to keep my audiences or my clients or, people that are affected by the work that I do really well because I've audited, like where are my natural energy patterns and I structure my day most of the time. I mean, it's easier for me to do because I own my own business. Like I am my own boss. I control my time. But being armed with this as an employee can also help you. Like being able to know, like, if I have a board presentation in my previous job, when I started working with my executive coach, I realized that, look, can we have the finance committee meetings like in the early part of the day instead of the late? Because the figures and all of that required a kind of thought work that I didn't really have the ability to do well later in the day. So it informed what time I schedule certain meetings. It informed my advocacy for myself because I kind of began to realize where my energy patterns were. So this is your homework, and I hope that each of you will take it seriously. We do have a weekend upon us, so please do your journaling, please do the energy audit, and please set your daily alarm. And it's just a question, how are you feeling and what do you need? And let me know how that goes. So here ends my sermon on today's mountain called energy. I'm going to open up the floor for reactions and thoughts and questions. I mean, for me, this stuff matters. So I want to see what was resonant, if any of this was resonant. Let me allow people to unmute. You can use the raise hand function if you'd like to speak. If not, you can also type in the chat box. All right, Elam, please unmute and share.
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much, Yawa. So, unfortunately, I missed all of last week. This is my first proper meeting. Thank you. It was great.
Oh, awesome.
And even before you got to the homework slide, I had said that this is definitely a good tip. I have to put it on my calendar. What do you need today? How are you doing? So, thank you. Practical tips. And then of course, delete, defer, delegate. I try to do them anyway, but it's good to have that structure and always kind of like think, okay, in terms of what can I defer, what can I delete. So thank you. Thank you. I've got practical tips to take away. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. And welcome. It's your first official coaching call, so welcome. Yeah. Anyone else
Thank
care
you.
to share? You can use the raise hand function or you can type in the chat box, whichever is more convenient. All right, Benedicta, please go ahead.
Hi, Yawa, and hi, everyone.
Hey.
Thank you so much for today's session. It was really interesting. I must apologize that I was multitasking end of week, so quite a lot to finish before 5 p.m. But one part that caught my attention was delete defer, delegate. And I was wondering whether I heard you right on defer. My question is, at what point does deferring become procrastination?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. So here's what I encourage to use as a framework for your decision making. I think a lot of times we take on way more than we can chew. So I give an example to illustrate this. So I wanted to do my doctorate in 2024, the doctor's degree, my PhD rather. So I wanted to do a PhD. I got the program that I wanted to do, the institution I wanted to do it at, etc. And in the same year that I wanted to do it, we made some big shifts for our family. We moved house, we changed schools for the kids. This institution where I wanted to do the degree would require an hour and a half commute in and out, daily. And it was a good idea, but the timing, this is how I assessed the decision. Like, I want to do it. I'm not being pressured to do it, but I want to further my education. Good idea. So sometimes there are good ideas that just happen in a bad time. And that's what you defer. Like to understand whether or not it's deferment worthy is will I be able to pick this up another time? And the answer to that was yes, because the school will still be offering that course in the 2-year window that I want to defer it. Will doing this now, is it absolutely necessary that I do it now? And the answer was no. Like, I didn't absolutely need this degree, this doctorate degree to continue serving in the roles that I serve. It'll be a nice to have. I wanted to, I would love to have the title of doctor in front of my name, but is it something that I absolutely needed to have in order to keep serving? No. I looked at my value system. Like, what do I really value now? Like, my kids are really young. And I have a thing that I say that I want to be famous at home, you know? I love it. Like my kids, well, my daughter especially would say things like, "Hey, we can't go to places without people recognizing you. People are always wanting to talk to you. You talk at all of these places. You're so popular. This girl in my class says they know you and blah blah blah." Like, but there's something about being popular at home that felt important to me. And I felt like, you know what? I'm gonna defer this because I think it will take me out of the home a lot more than I want to be right now because we've made these major shifts in our kids' lives. And if I'm going to do this for me, it will affect them negatively, right? So I said, I'm going to give myself a 2-year window for there to be more stability, and then I would pick this up again. So that's the frame that I encourage you to think about the things that you defer. Deferment differs from procrastination in that it never gets picked up. So when you defer something, you have a clear plan, a clear window for when it gets picked up again. Whereas with procrastination, it's almost always tomorrow. I'll get to it when I get to it, or one day I will. I'm someone who loves to do vision boards. And so a thing that I often do is every quarter I take my journal and what I was focused on that quarter and see where I am. And so keeping things on your radar, the things that you said you would do is another piece of that. Like with things you procrastinate, you almost never have recorded them, never have kept up with them, and are probably only reminded of them when someone says something, right? And the procrastination can be a function of fear, which is often what happens. So sometimes people say they're going to do this, I'm going to start this business. Maybe you have a friend who's been saying something for years and they never take action on it, is because they lack accountability mechanisms, which is another reason why I like working with coaches, because they can call me out on my BS and tell me, areas of my life where I'm not living up to what I say. It is so easy, especially if you're in a coaching role like I am, where I coach a lot of people. I'm an advisor to people, where you fall into this habit of being able to see for others, but not do for yourself. You're all up in other people's business, but your life is in disarray, which is why I don't trust a coach who's not coached themselves. So, pro tip, if you're ever hiring an executive coach, ask them who's coaching them or if they have a coach and what they're being coached on right now, because it can vary. So I hope that's helpful. That's the difference, at least as I understand it, between deferring something and procrastinating, because deferring is a decision. Procrastination is often a reaction. So the reaction to, oh my God, I'm scared, or oh my God, this is too much. Deferment really requires a plan of action to pick it up, and that's what makes it different. Great. All right, Benedicta, thank you for confirming that was helpful. Anyone else with a question, a contribution? What stood out for you? So I like that you like my 3D strategy. I wrote a book a few years ago, and that was one of the most popular chapters. I wrote, the 3D strategy, uh, delete, defer, and delegate. And then I have another 3Ds, um, ask for help, pray for help, and pay for help. That's the other strategy. The other face of that, like if you're going to delete or defer or delegate some things, you should also be like I as a Christian, prayer plays a big role in how I view, options on the table. So I pray for help, then I ask for help, then I pay for help, which is why I would encourage each of us to have our big girl panties on about wealth creation, that we should be in a position to get the help that we need, like coaching or psychotherapy that really helped me with my journey with my son. Being able to speak to a licensed psychotherapist about some of the deep feelings of hurt that I was feeling and pain, and how to manage, the life that I live now as a parent of a special needs mother, but who also has two other healthy kids who needs her, and who also needs to take care of herself and be there for her spouse. Like it's so many things, but you need help. You're going to need to pray for it. You're going to have to ask for it, and you're going to have to pay for it as well. So those are some of the things that I would say undergird, delete, defer, delegate. Because oftentimes you want to delegate something to someone, you probably need to pay them to do it, right? Like I pay a few people to make certain meals for me so that I don't have to spend too much time in my kitchen. I pay people to come clean my home. I pay, once in a while I get this woman who lives near us to come clean, and do some hand washing and laundry and ironing. Like those are things that like I can pray about, I can ask for help with, but it often helps when you can pay. It ensures a reliability. So, Joanne, I see your hand is up. Please unmute and share.
I was just going to say thank you so much for this thought-provoking conversation. As I said, I had never heard this before, and I'm just here sitting and thinking, how many people I'm going to defer, how many things I'm going to defer or delete or delegate, because that's usually my issue where if you're not going to do it when I want you to do it, I'm going to do it myself. And then I end up not having a lot of energy. But I wanted to ask a question. You talked about big girl investments. Is that what you said?
Well, I said big girl panties.
Yeah,
But
big gal pennies. So tell me more about that, or how give me an example of how you do it.
I ring fence money for myself that is for me and my personal development. So, for example, I've been on a 19-year journey of investing in public speaking because I feel like a big part of who I want to be and who I feel called to be requires communication. And I wrote this in the first chapter of one of my books that I used to get laughed at how I spoke. We grew up in the US and people thought we were strange because we had these funny African names, but also I got personally teased because they said my voice sounded funny, like I sound like a man. In fact, it still happens to me. I get on the phone and people are like, "Oh, yeah, I thought I was talking to a man." So I've been hyper focused on developing my communication style, ability, honing my voice, owning my voice, training my voice. I started off with Toastmasters, and I think Toastmasters at the time was like 20 something dollars a quarter or something like that. Then when I started making more money, I put aside money to like hire coaches, like people to work with me one on one. I've worked with some amazing speech coaches and helped me with my public speaking, etc. I think in 2023, I worked with a renowned musician to help me soften my voice. I felt like I was comfortable now with speaking, and I've been doing a lot of public speaking, but I was telling her that I think there are certain bits of edginess, and she took me through some vocal training that I think upped the game. In fact, a few close people said, "Yeah, well, you sound even better than you used to." Like I've spent thousands of dollars investing in public speaking because I see that as a key thing. I borrowed $12,000 to do protocol and etiquette school. I went in 2013, studied at the Protocol School of Washington because I realized that, look, I'm going to be in distinguished company and I want to know what to do about it. I want to hold my own when I'm meeting with presidents and heads of state and, CEOs, etc. And, who knew that in 2013 I'd do the course. In 2016, I was at the White House meeting President Obama. And I remember one of the people in our delegation said, "Yeah, well, you look so comfortable." As I said, "Wow, Lord, I'm so glad that I followed that leading." Like every one of these steps, people felt I was so extra. Like, what do you need this for? What do you need that for? What do you need this for? And I share these as personal examples of how I began being deliberate about ring fencing money at the expense of people calling you wicked. There will be grown people who will make their crisis your problem. And you will dip your hands into money that you could or should be investing in you, getting to be a better version of yourself because
Mm-hmm.
you want to be nice. So that's what I'm talking about, the big girl panties, because the big girl panty means like, look, y'all won't like me. I remember I hired an image consultant to help me figure out styling for myself. Like what colors work well with my skin tone, makeup. She treated cologne. I mean, my husband freaked out when he saw what I spent. Like ring fence money for self development, self-care. What are you trying to learn now? And I go through a spiritual process with that. Like, Lord, what is it you want me to focus on? Like, I would have these dreams. Like, I see myself with presidents and heads of state and whatever. And I just kept feeling like I better get ready for this stuff. Like, I accepted that as like God showing me a picture of my future. And the call of God is not a conference call. Not everybody is there. And so, yes, you do have this money in the bank. And yes, someone has a crisis, but no, you choose you. That's the big girl thing that I'm talking about. I've I've made the mistake of like, I remember taking out a loan for a family member to start a business and watched them squander that money. And I spent 4 years paying it off because I wanted to be nice. So there's that balance of like your generosity and your care of self. And there's this projection that people do on us that makes us feel like if we don't solve their problem and we're a person that has relatively more means than them, then we're wicked. And I've come to learn to find that that's okay. I'm okay with you thinking that I'm not cool. I'm okay also with not having certain trappings of wealth so that I can do this stuff. Like my, there's certain things that I don't have that I'm like, I could get it, but that means I won't be able to afford my executive coaching. And this coaching is so valuable to me. It keeps me on track. It keeps me moving towards the direction of the me, the future me that I feel called to develop. And that's the thing about, those of us who are people of faith, that sometimes we're absolving to God things that we need to get in control of. Like, Lord, put in my hands the resources and then help me direct some of it to the improvement of me. Like, you are your best investment, especially in a world that's volatile and uncertain. You need to invest in skills that'll help you win no matter what, wherever. So that's what I mean. And these are my examples because these are the exact things I've been focused on. Maybe for you, it's like, I got to get a license for real estate or something. Like, I see myself building this real estate empire. And, you know, this person won't understand, that person won't understand, blah, blah, blah. I'm ring fencing the resources to help create the picture of me that will attract, who I'm meant to be in the future, if that makes sense. Joanna, I
Yes,
hope.
it does.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yes, thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. All right. Anyone else with a question or comment or, a contribution of what stood out for you on today's call? All right. Evelyn, please unmute and share.
Hi everyone, good evening. Can you all
Good.
hear me? Can you hear me?
Evelyn, you sound faint to me. Are you able to speak up or get closer to your microphone?
Okay, how about now?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay, so I think my question is how to do, and it's something that I've been pondering about for a while after I met a friend and we really just clicked and got along so well, and and I was wondering that we never really talked about our spirituality, and today for some reason it just kind of became a conversation. And we are very different. She is Islamic, I'm a Christian, and we kind of went deep into a conversation. How is this going to work? Because for some reason we really just get along a whole lot. So I guess my question is, it's like the energy is right. However, we have a bit of different beliefs. I'm interested to hear what your intake about that.
So Evelyn, this is a friend of yours.
Yes.
I am of the opinion that you don't actually have to be of the same faith to have flow with someone. And this is a friendship. So that's why I was asking, is it a friend or like a romantic acquaintance? Because I think it gets interesting if it's like a love relationship, like a marriage. But I have been greatly supported and loved and mentored in the past 3 years by a Muslim woman who has just poured into me so much insight. She's opened up networks to me and has been instrumental to a lot of what I've achieved professionally in the past 3 years. She doesn't believe in Jesus. She believes in Allah and Muhammad. And we have values that are similar, although our religious faith practices differ. And I say this because the truth is sometimes the things God will send to us are through relationships with people that we never thought we would be related to. And if you're so churched, sometimes you can put up some walls that sometimes block you from receiving what you're meant to receive. So, for example, there would be no Moses without Pharaoh's daughter, who took to him for some reason and said, I think this boy should be saved. I found him and we don't know who his mama is, but I feel like I should take care of him. Like, what did this Muslim woman see in me that made her feel like she needs to look after me? So many of us will be in environments where people with different belief systems, will be related to, and you can find flow because there's commonality. I like to pray about my relationships as well. You know, I pray about relationships because, at least from a Christian point of view, the Apostle Paul in the New Testament writes something that I think is super important. He says, from henceforth now we know no man after the flesh. Don't know people after what you see physically. So I like to pray about people in my life. Like, who is this person to me, Lord? Do they belong in my inner circle? Is this a friend or is this an acquaintance? Like, what is this person and how should I flow with them and what do I do with them? And I like to pray a prayer this way. I like to say, let this relationship be no more and no less than what you've designed it to be, so that I can have a sensitivity if, like, this is someone with whom I should not be deeply connected. Because this woman, we talk into wee hours of the night about all sorts of things. She's been a professional sounding board, a strategist, a helper, a door opener, and it's been phenomenal. And I think this is a lesson I needed in my adult life. Like, look, sometimes God will use people who are of different faiths or of no faith to be a blessing to you or make influence on your life. And she tells people I'm her little sister. And I see that I too am making impact in her life. So I hope that helps, Evelyn.
Yes, it does. Actually, I mean, when we spoke today, I was like happy that we got to the point where we started talking about that. And when you spoke earlier about the woman who gave you the book and she was Buddhist, I'm like, that's interesting. Okay, that's the question I need to ask. So yes, thank you very much. So that is answered.
Oh, great. My pleasure. All right. Anyone else with anything to share? All right. I know it's I think 9:16 here in Ghana PM. And I think in other places it might be later. I see a few people have had to drop off, but look, I get pumped when we get to spend time together. I hope you've really taken a lot from today's session. This is our intro session to energy. Don't forget to do your homework. I'll post it in the group as well, just so that you don't forget it. And as always, we'll have the recording in the group as well. But I hope this journey is really one that you're taking seriously and are practicing integrity with yourself as you're going through it. I also hope that you are linking up with your accountability buddy if you haven't already. So I'll post in the chat box as well. Sorry, in the group, the WhatsApp group as well, so that people are reminded if they forgot who they were connected to. And some of you have asked that we connect you via email, so I'll find some time to do those connections this weekend as well. Okay. So if there's no other comment or question or reflection to share, I just want to lift up prayer for you, and then God willing, we'll meet again next week. Dear Lord, thank you so much for our gathering and this conversation on energy and these things that you're helping us to become more mindful of about how to create good energy and manage our energy on the physical, the emotional, the mental, the psychological, and the spiritual levels. We pray that each person that hears this and sits with it will have real clarity about what they need to change or shift. Give us wisdom about what are the energy vampires in our lives. Help us to do the energy audit and to get wisdom about how to structure our days in ways that enables us to never run depleted again. I pray for wisdom, just as you gave me wisdom to navigate some of the things that I needed to change. I pray that everyone who needs to delete will delete, everyone who needs to defer will defer, and everyone who needs to delegate will begin to delegate. I pray for financial sharpness and wisdom so that each of us will have the budget that's necessary to invest where it's necessary. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Thank you, my friend.
Amen.
So God willing, see you next week. Enjoy your weekend. Don't forget to journal.
Bye.
Do your homework.
Happy weekend. Bye.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye.